hide your kids, lock the doors. You're listening to HR's most dangerous podcast. Chad Sowash and Joel Cheeseman are here to punch the recruiting industry right where it hurts. Complete with breaking news, brash opinion, and loads of snark. Buckle up, boys and girls. It's time for the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
Oh, yeah. Like the Jelly of the Month Club, we're the gift that keeps on giving the whole year. What's up, kids? You are listening to the Chad and Cheese Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joel Impeachment Cheeseman.
And this is Chad. What day is it? Sowash.
And on this episode, Appcast strikes back, LinkedIn fights on, and Gemini, it's not just the astrological sign of your favorite podcasters. Let's do this.
Hospitality is the heart of our society. It brings people together to share great food, drinks, and experiences. But successfully managing a restaurant or hotel is no easy feat. That's where Harry comes in. Harry is the frontline employee experience platform that helps you build, manage, and engage great teams. With Harry, managers can easily find and hire top talent, manage timekeeping, and communicate with employees at any time from any place. Candidates and team members can quickly and efficiently apply for jobs, swap shifts, and access important information entirely from their mobile devices. And Harry's robust employee engagement tools make team members feel more connected than ever. With Harry, as an owner or operator, you get a bird's eye view of your business, from turnover cost, labor cost, employee sentiment, compliance risk, and team performance. Run your business better by understanding the power of your people. Because when your team is the heart of your business, Harry is the heartbeat. See how it transforms your business.
What's up, Chad?
Yeah. Just trying to figure out what day it is. Spent a week in London, and we were stacked. And London in December is London in December. Let me just get that out there. Cold,
Kind of like London in August.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, but cold.
Yeah.
But full of warm pubs, which is fucking amazing, and great people we know. The holiday lights throughout London were just freaking beautiful, and thanks to Peter Weddle and Stephen O'Donnell and Bill Fanning for having Julie and I out to the event. We had some great Indian food the first night with Fanning and Stubbsy. Then we went to lunch with Alex Forlis, who bestowed a couple of bottles of Greek wine upon us. Sushi with our friend Mikkel from Sonic Jobs. Wow. Dinner with Sir Richard and Lady Beverly Collins at a pretty swanky Instagram-ready Italian restaurant. Oh, yeah, it was swanky. A night of drinking, Squid Games, dinner, and more drinking with Jem, Thomas, and Rob from the guys from Talent Nexus. And a really cool last night out with Sam and the Real Links board of advisors at the Groucho Club in Soho. Last but never least, Alex Tchaikovsky brought me some Oktoberfest German beer right from Germany. And I also got a bottle of 12-year reserve single malt Bushmills from our friend Michael Blakely. So delicious. So delicious.
So I'm surprised you don't know what day it is with all the alcohol and food that you consumed last week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Squid Games. I know Squid Game, the show. What do you mean you did Squid Games? Who died?
So they've got this immersive game where you literally go into a box. It's a room, but it's a box. You put on these little visors, and they've got like these little nodes on them, and that's where you're at. And you play the game on the wall. Yeah. In like the stop go, the red light, green light. I mean, there are just a bunch of different games that you can play. And then you score. You score as a team against other teams, but then you also score against each other. So it was fun. And whenever we go to London, I have to say one of the most fun times we have all the time is with the guys from Talent Nexus, because they always take us out to play games, drink, eat, and then drink again.
Yeah. So is this like a Netflix sanctioned thing? Like, sponsored or powered by Netflix, Squid Game, and you went in a thing and it had Squid Game's branding on it and everything. Oh shit, that's kind of cool. Brand extension.
it was
I
really
like
cool.
it. I like it. And there was a bar there? You could drink and play
As a matter of fact,
Greenlight?
it's funny because between games, right on the wall, it asks you if you want more alcohol. And then you just go up and you touch the wall and what you want, right? And I want 2 IPAs and I want, a fizzy drink for Thomas or, something like that. And then you put order, and 2 minutes later, they come in, they put them down in the little drink holders, and then you go back to playing the game.
Oh, man.
All right.
I'm
Genius.
Not hating on that.
Shout out.
At all. Let's get to some shout outs, shall we?
Let's do it.
You gave a whole bunch in your little explanation of last week's activities, but my first shout out goes out to Checker. You think Checker's a background check company? Well, think again, Chad. They've expanded the platform with the launch of Checker Pay and Checker Onboard, addressing the needs of growing, flexible, and mobile-first workforce. This stuff reeks of desperation to me. We look at Handshake going after LinkedIn. Last week we talked about Remote taking on Upwork and Fiverr. This kind of dilution of the brand and the services almost never works out very well. It confuses the consumer. It divides the workforce. It creates confusion. I mean, Checker says background check. It's a great brand. Checker does not say onboarding solution. They're fucking up. This is what happens when you take too much money, when your valuation is too high. You start doing crazy stuff like this, and I think Checker is going to regret it. However, shout out to them for doing something, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's smart because they're going down funnel. Whether they can do it successfully or not, we will see. But they definitely have to open up their total addressable market with the money that they took. So they have to do something. The question is, were these the right, the right things to do? Background check into onboarding. Yeah, there's a good synergy there. The thing is, they've got to go down. They've got to go down funnel. That was one of the things that we talked about, where LinkedIn is really, they're really stuck. Is they're at the top of the funnel. And if they come down the funnel, then they have more data. They have more of an ecosystem. Right now, the ecosystem is just on the top of the funnel. So I don't know. We'll see what they can do. It's I kind of like those
platform
guys. I'm not a big background check guy, but I kind of like those guys.
Yeah, it's a shitty business, so you kind of got to start doing new stuff, I guess, if you want to support your $6 billion valuation or whatever the hell it is.
Ooh, yeah. I don't know.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Just
Chad.
a quick.
It's crazy.
I've got a Merry Fixmas. This is from our Factory Fix guys. We'll talk about fantasy football later. But big shout out to the Cumberland Hotel in London, right by Marble Arch, where Julie and I stayed. Shout out because they played NFL football every Sunday, which coincidentally also came during their drag show brunch, which was amazing. We had football going on and drag over there. It was like a melding of the communities. Did they actually meet? It doesn't matter. They were together. It was pretty cool.
That escalated quickly.
Okay, moving on. Shout out to Doritos. Who doesn't love Doritos?
No.
What's your favorite flavor of Doritos?
I like Cool Ranch. I'm big Cool Ranch Dorito guy.
Cool Ranch. You can't lose with Cool Ranch for sure. The sweet chili is really solid as well. Anyway, can I interest you in a nacho cheddar Doritos flavored liquor drink?
Oh God, no!
Think
horrible.
cheddar cheese vodka.
That sounds horrible.
So shout out.
I'm about
to
ready to throw up right now.
Yeah. So Doritos, PepsiCo has partnered with Empirical, who's a big booze maker, and they have fused nacho cheese Dorito flavor with vodka. The reviews of people have had it is that it's good. Now PepsiCo needs to get in bed with Taco Bell and get this nacho Doritos drink with some Taco Bell, and your boy here is in Nirvana. Okay, I don't know about the hangover beer shits the next morning, but for the night, that sounds like a pretty good time to me. Shout out to Doritos Liqueur coming coming in January at the low price, Chad, of $65 a bottle. So skip the Old Forester, skip the Bib and Tucker, go to the Doritos $65 aisle for that one.
I will not. That sounds like a very high price tag to puke my guts out. Yeah, that's not good.
It's very expensive, especially for vodka.
Crazy. That's crazy. So I'm going to shout out to infrastructure. Shout out to high-speed rail, and it's about time in the U.S. Announced Friday, the largest federal investment in passenger trains in decades with $8.2 billion in new funding for high-speed rail and other projects nationwide. Infrastructure, baby, and it's about fucking time. Big Joel, have you ever been on high-speed rail?
Yeah, it's called European transportation.
There it is. Yes. Yes, you have more space. There's no TSA, no long lines. It's just a better experience than flying when you're not crossing an ocean. Europe is bigger than the U.S. China is bigger than the U.S. Guess what? They both have high-speed fucking rail. It's about time. So big shout out to the U.S. and high-speed rail.
Yeah, I hope this works. I mean, we've talked about Europe. It's like half the size and twice the population. So rail makes a ton of sense. Everything's close by.
No, landmass-wise, it's bigger. Landmass-wise, it's bigger than the U.S.
I thought it was half the size but twice the population.
Nope, landmass-wise, Europe.
We need Adam Gordon to chime in on this. Adam Gordon, chime in on this. But
it's fairly simple. You can just go to Google and do a search on landmass.
What's Google again? Anyway, so we're in Indianapolis. There should be a Chicago, Indy, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, like
easy.
Regional makes a ton of sense. Like all those cities would benefit greatly if there was like a high-speed train that took you to downtown, the center of downtown of all those places. But Americans love their cars, so we'll see what happens.
Well, we love the cars because we've been forced to use cars. We in Indianapolis have been trying to get fucking light rail forever. And the Koch brothers have been down on that shit. They've been spending money against it so that we keep buying oil. So this a lot. It doesn't have to do with us loving cars. It has to do with what we have available to us. It just is what it is. So hopefully this will change some things and we'll be able to get to places without having.
Yeah, car and oil had better lobbyists than the railroads did back in the day. But yeah, high speed train is sexy. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it at least in my. I want to get to Chicago easier and faster and cheaper.
Exactly.
That's what I want.
You know what's even better than fast rail? Free stuff. T-shirts from JobGet, beer, Aspen Tech Labs. God, I love those guys. Whiskey. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen TextKernel's new logo. Have you seen it? Go to textkernel.com. New logo, new brand. Pretty amazing. And if it's your birthday, kid. If it's your birthday. Hey, listener. Rum with plum.
Oh, shit.
Where's it at?
Can you feel the tension in the air right now?
Mm-hmm.
I know I can. I can feel it all the way down in my plums.
So before we get to this week's, your wife celebrated a birthday last week.
Yes.
Do you want to say anything nice about her or what you guys did?
Oh, did I not go through the long laundry list of what we did in London?
Oh, so you wrapped that into her birthday.
Yes, not to mention she came back with 3 more pairs of Vasias. So she has 3 sets of Vasias for Europe and 3 sets of Vasias for the U.S.
Do all Vasias have the V and on the sneaker, or do they
I think so.
Have like
I
boots?
think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not a Vasia expert, although I know all of hers have the V's. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, let's get to this week's birthdays. Some fans are celebrating another trip around the sun. That includes Jack Mahoney, Lars Kuz, Allison Paget, Fozzie Imtiaz, Alex Micklin, Phil Larkins, Christina Lowry, Aaron Stevens, Rathine Sina, Max Armbruster, your boy, Jonathan Duarte, and a very special birthday by my father, Will Cheeseman, is celebrating number 84. Number 84 on planet Earth. Wow. Happy birthday, everybody. Wow. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Before you ask, he loves popcorn. So we're getting him maybe Doritos flavored liquor popcorn. I don't know. We're going to get all the kind of popcorn that my dad can eat with the 7 remaining teeth that are still his original teeth.
Get all the popcorn. If you have to put it in the blender, just make sure he gets the popcorn. Okay.
Toothpicks for days getting those kernels out.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Oh my God. So events, kids, travel powered by Shaker Recruitment Marketing. We already have 8 conferences planned for 2024. The very first is the event in San Diego. That's right, TA Week, where we're going to be hanging out with koalas. Yeah, no shit, koalas at the zoo. We're going to the zoo. Why? Because we are hanging with the guys and gals and crew from Koalify. That's
Nice.
the one that starts with the Q, ends with the I, Koalify. If you want to check it out, go to chadcheese.com/events. We're really stoked. I mean, Evan White he's been in high fucking gear putting together events and doing some really, really cool work. So I'm excited to work with him this year.
Yeah, Evan's out of control. I have a Canadian update on one of my
Hey,
travels.
Gus, we're doing our movie. Don't wreck our show, you hoser.
So our friends at Hiring Branch were at HR Tech this past year. We did the high roll with them at Unleash earlier in the year. And I was talking to him about living in Montreal. Everyone that listens regularly knows my wife is Canadian. I have Canadian in-laws, and my father-in-law is a big Montreal Canadiens fan. So I was asking if he went to games. Was it hard to get tickets? He's like, well, I share season tickets with a few other guys, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, the wife and I are going to drop the kid off in London, Ontario, take a train. We talked about trains, take a nice little train ride all the way to Montreal. We're going to have dinner, I think, with some of his team the night before. And then the night of, go to the game. We're going to get to see the Oilers. Connor McDavid, arguably the best hockey player in the world. So I'm pumped for that. But that's my travel. It's sort of business, sort of not. You're not involved.
I love it.
You don't have to be. But yeah, Hiring Branch, thank you. We'll see you. We'll see you in a few weeks for sure. For sure.
Beautiful. Are you just trying not to talk about fantasy football and your ass whipping last week? I mean, I'm not sure.
All right. So I split with you. Okay. I split with you. Well, all right. Okay.
Well, your record wouldn't show that.
All right. All right. Okay, everybody. Fantasy football is winding down. Chad, like me, is not in the playoffs at this point. But
nope. I'm 5 again. Last year I was number 5. Fuck.
Praying he does not make the playoffs because he will be really hard to live with if he does. Here's your leaderboard for the, I think, final week of the regular season. This has been sponsored by our friends at Factory Fix. Can't thank them enough for supporting our unhealthy addictions like fantasy football. And Chad is showing his Factory Fix sweater, Christmas sweater. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you got to go to
like
YouTube.
A jersey.
Yeah,
it's like jersey
at
quality.
Chad Cheese. Chad bought an ugly sweater of our podcast like the first or second year that we did this. I assume you still have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, because it is.
Let's sell this.
Epic.
I'm like, no one's gonna buy this shit. I don't know. Maybe we need to do like a special.
Everybody loved
Christmas sweater. Yeah, sponsored by somebody.
Get with Mike from Factory Fix. See if he can do it in this kind of. This is like jersey material. Yeah. This is fucking
it
legit,
looks comfortable.
thick.
It
nice.
doesn't look itchy at all. It looks really nice. It looks really nice. Okay, here's your leaderboard, everybody. Probably the last week that we go through the whole thing before the playoffs. Number 1, she's been there all year pretty much. Michelle Sergeant Slaughter at number 1. Number 2, she's been there just about the whole season. It's Marcy Playground Mall. Number 3, Funky Cold Medina Pero. Number 4, Jagged Little Jill Patterson. Yes. Chad just on the line at number 5. Chad Fuchaball Sowash. Number 6, Joe Bagga Dixon. He's there. He's right there. He's in the 6th spot. Number 7, Brent Musburger Losi. Number 8, Billy Joel Cheeseman. Number 9, Dean Wizard of Osner. Number 10, Jasper the Friendly Ghost Spanjart. Number 11, Dennis the Menace Tupper, and he's tied with Kristen Duncan Chic Urban. That's right. She's barely breathing at number 12. But I'm more excited to see who's in the cellar at the end of the year than who's in the playoffs, because Tupper and Urban are fighting for that last spot. And if Tupper goes from first to worst, we're gonna have to get him an epic something to like showcase as the loser for the season. Also notably,
a toilet brush.
We will likely have an all-female playoff this season, which I think is fucking awesome. So fucking awesome. So fucking awesome. All right, that is your Fantasy Fix leaderboard. Once again, sponsored by our friends at Factory Fix. By the way, the Browns play the Bears this week. If any of the Factory Fix people want to lose some money, just hit me up on the DMs and we can figure that out.
Topics.
All right, Chad. Well, missing last week, I know you're chomping at the bit to talk about a few of the items that we discussed. Jim Stroud was nice enough to join me, take some time off from SourceCon and fill in for you. But you have some stuff on your chest you want to get off. What's up?
Well, first off, so Jim, thanks again for guest hosting, my friend. Known Jim forever, but you might not remember, or you might remember, Jim was our very first guest host back in April of 2017 when Jeremy was being born. He stepped in, and we were very, very early into this fucking journey. So Jim's the OG.
Winning.
Yeah, he's the OG. So I have to say, it was quite refreshing to kind of like sit back, listen to last week's show, digest it, and then pull together some comments because the dumping of CPA seems to be just a big retreat by Indeed. 2 quick points. Number one, a history lesson. How did Indeed take organic away, the free traffic away, first and foremost? Transition to moving everybody to paid traffic. They started with job boards first, and they made them pay for traffic, right? So it was, they took that little piece out. It was a third of it. They took them out. They made them pay for traffic. Then Indeed waited patiently. Then staffing companies' jobs were taken out of the free feed, and they had to pay Indeed, the Indeed piper, right? Yeah. After the dust settled on that one with staffing companies, then hiring companies were next. So how is that successful rollout different than what we experienced this year? They did it all at once. They weren't fucking around. Yeah, it was like they didn't follow their tried and true Trojan horse model. The Indeed crew has grown cocky and sloppy. So why do you think that is? I mean, it just blew my mind seeing Raj Mukherjee talk about, things are getting better and employers are starting to like it and it's very new. And then we go back and now it's an experiment. So why are they getting so cocky and sloppy?
So we talked about this. So I'll give you, I guess, 3 reasons. One is hubris. You mentioned it. Like when you just get cocky and confident and you can't lose, then you just do stuff and think everyone's going to love it. And that rarely works. The other one is they have a new sugar daddy. They have a new private equity firm that's probably forcing them to look at what's working and what isn't. And this probably wasn't working the way that it should. And somebody, a grown-up in the room, hopefully said this needs to go because it's not the direction that we need to go. And I think the third one is a little bit of fear. Regardless of what people say, I think Google for Jobs is growing. I think once they start pay-per-click, some advertising solution there, it's going to pull money away from Indeed. So doing things out of fear like this, also programmatic. It's really hard to have a conversation as an Indeed salesperson and talk about like, I'm paying 12 cents a click here, but I'm paying you 84 cents. Like, why am I doing that?
A click.
And that's a really hard conversation to have. So if you create confusion in this new model that, no, it's not clicks, it's applicants or it's interested candidate, then you create confusion. And then people just go, oh, okay, then it's not 14 cents versus 52 cents. It's something different.
So that was point number one. They just seem to be sloppy and cocky because they've been able to roll these things out very effectively before. Number two, you made a Google comparison to Indeed, which it was pretty apples and oranges. And let me hit this up. So Google doesn't control the product, and they never did, right? They were like the marketplace, but they never controlled the product. Indeed controls the entire ecosystem, right? That's a huge difference. The product at Google, you have nothing to do with that. Indeed, you have everything. So Indeed, I'm predicting they can and they will do CPA. Why? They have no fucking choice with Google for Jobs and LinkedIn breathing down their necks. Once Indeed finally, and this is where I think the sugar daddy comes in, finally invests cash in a system that can actually match candidates against experiences, skills to do job requirements, it's a done deal, right? And that's not complex at all. As a matter of fact, ZipRecruiter should have productized this already. I can't believe they didn't. You want 10 candidates that meet your requirements to apply? Done. Then the ad shuts off after 10 applies happen. It's not hard. We've gotten the information. We know they're qualified. Boom. You got what you asked for. They might not be exactly what you want, but it doesn't matter. You want a qualified applicant, you got 10 qualified applicants.
Yeah.
What's hard is Indeed's matching technology is shit, and their backend system is in legacy status. I spoke with some people last week when I was in London, and they pointed directly at Indeed getting fat and lazy like Monster did, and that their back end literally not changing for 7 years. So Indeed will have to spend the money. They have plenty, and they've got to do it to retool to make CPA happen. The cost per started apply, that's another mess and another story. But I think CPA, which they say they dumped, I think that's coming. They just have to do a shit ton of retooling on the back end, because with their forced registration right now, they're gaining more candidates into their database. They need to start asking more information of those candidates, create richer profiles, and then they need a better matching system in the end. I don't know. Maybe they try to buy Textkernel or something like that. Somebody who actually works.
Oh, now you're
60% of the time it works
crazy.
every time.
I would love to see when Google launches their paid product or their paid option.
Yeah.
If they go like bottom feeder per click pricing, talking 5 cents a click. I'm talking like disrupt the programmatic people, disrupt Indeed, like totally throw a grenade down the hallway of the job board industry. I don't think they'll do that, but it would be really fun to watch. The other thing is, I mean, there's a technical side to this and there's a human side to it, because people can do the math in their head saying, okay, I paid this many for this many clicks and I got this many candidates. And okay, they've somehow adjusted to the cost of that and they're okay with it. When they start paying tens of dollars for an applicant, if that applicant is not great, the math on that is tougher, because I'm paying dollars as opposed to cents for garbage. And there's a mental human thing that they have to figure out if they can. The technical part is one of it, but if you can't convince people that I'm cool with paying for an applicant and I'm cool paying this much for it, then it's not going to work. So that's a bigger problem for me with them than it is the tech side, or do they have something else that's different? It's going to be fun to watch. I think they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And if Google comes out with like bottom dweller pricing, it's going to be really, really interesting. And if they start putting those ads in your Gmail, they start putting job postings in YouTube and other places in their network, that's going to shake up the programmatic folks. It's going to be fun. Come on, Google. Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I see Indeed buying a lot of that real estate, by the way.
They already are.
And then secondarily, talking about Appcast and Twitter and Greenhouse and Lever a couple of weeks ago. So our discussion where you dug into the jobs feed of the Twitter's new quote unquote hiring platform. Yes, if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm using air quotes hiring platform. Had us scratching our heads, wondering what the actual fuck is going on over there. I mean, huge brands have directed their big marketing agencies to pull all advertising from Twitter. But what happens if those same companies' jobs start showing up beside anti-Semitic posts powered by jobs feed, giving to them by Greenhouse, Lever, Appcast, whomever, right? So we received tons of opinions, which we always do from listeners, and that's great. And a response from the man with the $1 million smile, the COO over at Appcast, that's Matt Molinari. Yep. Matt posted, quote, "Hey all, I'd like to clarify a few points on behalf of Appcast. We have always empowered our customers to direct us to remove sites and channels from their job advertising strategy. Appcast customers with jobs distributed to X, Twitter, have been made aware and have the choice if they'd like to continue doing so. That said, Appcast remains committed to staying at the cutting edge of job ad distribution, proving our yada, 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 bunch of policy stuff, right? Totally love it. The latter part was more, I think, legal than it was Matt. I love it. But why is this a big deal? So there was a bit of gaslighting on the socials last week in running parallels between LinkedIn and Indeed job postings with these Twitter postings. And let me qualify why this is so different. Anti-Semitic tweets, social posts, will not show up in the Indeed or LinkedIn feed next to your employer's jobs. The end goal of the Twitter hiring platform is to add job content into the main Twitter feed. Okay? This is where all the toxic posts are happening. There's a huge difference in saying that I want to use Indeed, I don't like their pricing model, versus I don't want to use Twitter because they've got anti-Semitic posts. There's entirely different, right? Yep. So that was last week. And remember, jobs are not yet in with the tweets. They're not there yet, but they will be. So just imagine your brand showing up beside a purely toxic tweet, or maybe, I don't know, a tweet from Alex Jones. That's right, kids. Alex Jones was allowed back on Twitter this week, the very anniversary of Sandy Hook School Massacre. Who is Alex Jones, you might ask? Well, if you forgot, Alex Jones claimed for years that the killing of 20 students and 6 staff members at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newton, Connecticut, was staged with actors as a part of a government plot to seize Americans' guns. So yes, I do trust Matt's words because I trust Matt. He's an awesome dude, but I'm also a huge believer in trust but verify. Make sure you know where your fucking jobs are showing up. The jobs are not commingling yet in the actual Twitter feed, but when that shit starts happening, stay diligent, kids.
Yep.
Another one.
So we talked about this pretty extensively, talked about Appcast providing backfill for Twitter, which it still is, as well as Greenhouse and others. And Matt was quick to point out that advertisers have control over where their jobs show up, yada, yada. And that's great that he reached out. A lot of companies don't reach out or publicly explain what's going on, and that's their right. I would say when you get to a certain size, you should have a team or somebody dedicated to giving a heads up to the industry media, the bloggers, the podcasters, whatever. And by doing that, like you and I, or one of us, should have gotten a heads up, like, hey guys, they've never reached out to me, the PR person.
Well,
like, they never said,
I just want to say that I reached out to somebody of one of the big companies who actually had their marketing pulled off Twitter to ask TA if they received anything from their applicant tracking system or anything like that about this whole thing. Received nothing. So yes, we definitely need to receive that shit. But before we do, the
customers do.
And when we start actually being the ones who are heading all of these conversations, which we shouldn't be, fuck it. That's who we are.
That's it. If you want to control the narrative, you have to communicate with the people who talk about this stuff. And then you're not stuck on LinkedIn with your COO talking about, like, oh, here's the policy guys, or here's what's going on in case there are any questions. We should have known before the deal was done. Hey, we're doing this. Anyone that doesn't want to be on Twitter cannot be on it. We've let our customers know. So we could have gone on the show and said, hey, this has happened, and Appcast is there. But they've done the due diligence of letting their companies get off if they don't want to be on the Twitter platform. There's nothing on their website that I saw that says anything about customers can control where the stuff goes. I'm sure it's there maybe when you log in, but when you get to a certain size as a company, have one person dedicated to building a bridge to all the media that's industry wide. Give us a call. We'll give you the first dozen, right? That's about all you need to know.
We know those people well already.
It's not a big community, but like let them know, because I can tell you I've never gotten anything from Appcast like, hey, this is coming. Here's a news release we're dropping on whatever. Nothing. So Appcast, you bought an agency. Agencies do this for a living. Like, empower them to reach out to the industry media and anybody that's a certain size. Think about, people like us, because we talk and your customers listen, your partners listen, and it could save you a lot of headaches if you control the message before it drops.
No question.
No question. All right. Well, somebody who generally does get the message but does not reach out to us. Google is in the news. Let's talk about Google's Gemini. They've making some waves in the tech world, to say the least. It's designed to be a multimodal, which means it can understand and work in various types of information, such as text, images, audio, video, and code. Google has big plans for Gemini. They're integrating it into many of their products, including search, their ad platform, and their web browser, Chrome. It's largely been celebrated as an ambitious project that has the potential to change the way we interact with technology. Chad, my favorite Gemini, by the way, my favorite Gemini. What are your thoughts on Gemini?
Oh, question. Did you see the promotional video?
I did.
It was a promotional video. It was not a demo, right? But it was pretty astounding. I think we need to stand in awe of where we've come in just the last year. ChatGPT was opened up to the public a little over a year ago, and we're now we were marveling over poems and image generation because it was fucking cool. Well,
for those who haven't seen the video, give them kind of an overview of what is on the video.
So, when you start taking a look at multimodal, well, I tell you what, we talked about this, and just like to let you know that the Chad and Cheese brought this to you back in July, kids. So go ahead and play that beautiful bean footage, Joel.
Yep, have a listen.
The big key here that I think through these three, inflection, runway, and typeface, is multimodal. And when you're talking about multimodal models, it's not just consuming text, but you're also consuming audio and video. So if you want to contextualize the data, which is really what this is all about, you need all aspects of that data. So think about it. If you're reading something, you gain some context. If you're listening to it, then you gain more context than reading, listening, then watching. You're just continually starting to understand how AI can learn. So we're getting past just the text aspect. Again,
Bingo.
We talked about
multimodal,
right? So Gemini is the first model to outperform humans on what they call an MMLU, a massive multitask language understanding. There's so many fucking acronyms in this shit. One of the most popular methods to test the knowledge and problem solving of any AI model. Gemini beats ChatGPT-4 in every general AI, reasoning, math, and code category. Only ChatGPT-4 was better in reasoning, one of the subsets, common sense reasoning for everyday tasks. So they have three offerings. One is Nano, which is going to be for my Droid phone, which is going to be awesome. Chrome and some of the devices. Then you've got Pro, which I'm assuming is going to be more of an SMB model. And then Enterprise, which is where those big companies are going to start grinding data. 2 weeks ago, we talked about how these large language models are cars, and the data you feed into them are the fuel. Well, what's happening is the car is evolving from a Model T to Ferrari in record fucking pace. So what you can do with that data is going to be amazing. It's going to be mind-boggling, to be quite frank. So with these numbers, Google just leapfrogged OpenAI, aka Microsoft. Get ready, because Microsoft's answer, then maybe Amazon or Anthropic's answer is going to be leapfrogging Google. This is going to be the race, kids, and it's not going to be who wins, because this race is just going to fucking continue. And those big three players, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft, they're going to stay in the race. Anthropic, we'll see who actually gobbles them up, because somebody's going to.
Yeah. Google went deep on this one.
Just the tip.
To explain the video, if you haven't seen it, there's a developer and a voice. The voice is the AI, and he starts by drawing a squiggly line, and the voice says, "What's this?" And he's like, "It looks like a squiggly line." And then he finishes it, and it looks like a duck. And the voice says, "Oh, it looks like a duck." He draws water. The AI is like, "Oh, the duck is in water." And it kind of keeps going, different shapes. It shows
blue duck.
Like a rubber ducky. And then it says, it has a rubber duck, and it has two roads. One ends in a bear, one ends in another duck. And they're like, which road should I take? And it says, one of them looks like there's a bear. The other one is duck. So ducks are friendly. Go to the duck. Like, that's kind of where this thing is going. And it's pretty mind blowing. And I think about how that could impact our space. I mean, look, you could see a world where a video camera watches you at work all day, and then the AI says at the end of the year, did they deserve a raise or not, based on what they saw, how much work they did, facial expressions, whatever. How much of a raise should they get? How do they compare with the other workers in their department, because we've been watching them the whole time? You could see a world where this thing watches an interview and says which candidate they would hire as part of it, and why would they do that? Are there ones that they thought were sketchy? And this gets into like higher view facial recognition stuff. This gets our friend Keith Sonderling interested, I'm sure, in terms of like how this could play into exclusivity and racism and bias. So this is cool, but it's gonna do some really weird, interesting things for the workforce, because I could see a day where Big Brother is watching you all day and giving a report to everybody about what it saw, what it thinks, about what your job is. It gets into Minority Report status, like predicting what you're going to do, like how you're going to respond to stuff. It could be sales process. It could be like going into a store. It could be, think about school shootings. You mentioned Sandy Hook. Imagine a video camera outside of every school that says, "Oh, this looks like a bad guy for whatever reason," and then locks the doors until there's some approval process. So you could look at security very differently than we do now. But yeah, very impressive. I'm anxious to see where this goes. It's slightly scary. I was really hoping that he was going to set down like a dildo or draw some boobs to see what the AI, if it could recognize those or not. But unfortunately, it wasn't a 12-year-old boy doing the demos for AI.
Maybe next time.
People are going to abuse this thing, have fun with it, joke around with it. But yeah, it is impressive technology, and it is going to change the way work is done and how people are evaluated and how people are hired, for sure.
Yeah. I can see contextualized AI videos, contextualized AI interviews, right? So video creation, audio creation, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is very dystopian. Trying to look at the little stuff, right? The things that we could see in our space, and how these models could prospectively create just a better experience for recruiters and for job seekers.
Yeah, we talk about augmented stuff. It's like literally an assistant watching and looking and seeing things as they are, like voice, video, audio, like all that stuff being gobbled up and chewed up and spit out in an intelligent way. All right, well, my mind's a little bit blown. Let's take a break, and we'll talk about LinkedIn when we get back. All right, Chad, let's talk a little LinkedIn. this week. LinkedIn continues its fight against fake accounts by winning a legal case against Top Social and Social BD24. The defendants were found to have created over 400,000 fake LinkedIn accounts and were ordered to pay damages and prohibited from offering fake followers, likes, views, comments, or connections. Sarah White, a VP of legal at LinkedIn, said, quote, "We're encouraged by our decisive win and will continue to leverage all available tools, including legal action when necessary, to ensure the LinkedIn community remains trusted and authentic," end quote. Woo! Finally, I feel safe using LinkedIn. Chad, what are your thoughts on the news out of our favorite social business network?
Damn. So I think this is a pretty amazing precedent that's being set, but $43,000 for damages. I mean, that's a slap on the wrist. Yep. 430,000 would provide a punch in the mouth that I think this deserves. This is a shot over the bow to companies out there that are inflating their company size with fake employees on LinkedIn, and it's happening, and we're seeing it happen. Why are they doing that? Number one, to bloat what people think the size of their organization is, number one, not to mention sharing content, commenting on content, bloating really all the commenting segments and engagement segments with fake engagement, right? So, I don't see this just as these companies who are nailed with a pissy ass fine. There are companies that are out there today that hopefully LinkedIn has a reporting methodology to ensure that they can start to prove that some of these people are actually real, instead of just finding an image on Midjourney and or creating an image on Midjourney and starting to create profiles.
Yeah. So here's the LinkedIn playbook as I see it, Chad. Step one, keep everyone out of your house. This is sue everyone scraping your profiles, everyone that's using it to create new services and solutions. The HiQ legal case has kind of solved that for the most part in combination with like playing whack-a-mole with spiders and scrapers that come to the site. But for the most part, the products and services created to scrape LinkedIn has subsided. So step one has been achieved, I think, for the most part. Number two is just what happened, right? Just what happened is legitimize your data. If people can't get to the data, but the data is garbage, then it's not worth as much as if it's legitimized and original content. So step two is taking place. Who's putting fake profiles? How do we identify those? Get them out. Step two is en route, and there's a lot of if these knuckleheads were putting up 400,000 fake accounts, imagine somebody who's serious about this and what they could do to the data that's in there. Once they've achieved that, and by the way, they've partnered with Clear and other services to try to help legitimize the profiles that are there. If they can get to a point where 90+% of the profiles are all original, or even closer to 100%. Then it's like turn on the money printing machine, because you have achieved Xanadu in terms of what they do. Look, Microsoft paid $26 billion, not for the job board, not for the learning upskilling solution that they have. They did it for the people that are on LinkedIn. The directory of professionals is highly monetizable, but they got to get those in line with like being legitimate people who are real. So this is their next step. If they get to step three, think about what you're going to be paying for LinkedIn. You think you're paying a lot now. If they feel like they have a high level of real people and profiles on the platform, what you pay now for LinkedIn is going to be a pittance for what you're going to be paying for it in the future. Three steps to the money making machine, the money printing machine at LinkedIn. It's happening, people. It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah,
but good for them. I mean,
it's happening.
LinkedIn is better if it's real people. Period. Like it just
I agree 100%.
No one can like be pissed off about like, get all the fake stuff off. Like that's perfectly great.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
They can't be pissed off about Facebook, though.
Yes, they can definitely be pissed off by Facebook. Yeah, that's...
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
All right, a little Facebook fraud. Can I interest you in that? Barbara Furlow Smiles, a former global diversity executive at Facebook, has pleaded guilty to stealing over $4 million from the company through an elaborate scheme involving fraudulent vendors, fictitious charges, and cash kickbacks. She used her position to make Facebook pay numerous individuals for goods and services that were never provided and then received kickbacks from them. She also caused Facebook to onboard vendors owned by friends and associates who paid her kickbacks after receiving payment from Facebook. She used the stolen money to live a luxurious lifestyle in California and Georgia. I guess as luxurious as Georgia can be. She lived it. She is scheduled to be sentenced in March of 2024, just in time for March Madness. Chad, what are your thoughts on fraud at Facebook?
Yeah, so Barbara Furlow Smiles served as a lead strategist, global head of employee resource groups and diversity engagement at Facebook. She said, this is her own community. This is her own fucking community that she's fucking over. No wonder why the damn DEIB initiative over there failed. We've been making fun of it for years. They spent all this money and nothing happened. This is why. It was rotting from the fucking head. It was rotting from this Barbara Furlow Smiles. I mean, she deserves the orange jumpsuit for 2023. She gets the orange jumpsuit award. Her and old girl from Junco, right? I mean, this has been the year of fraud for a couple of females in leadership positions, which just I am fucking floored. I am floored.
The sad part about this is at a time when companies are looking to dump their DEI initiatives, this woman unfairly is going to be, DEI people or those people involved in this whole thing are crooked, they're scam artists, etc. And it has nothing to do. This is just a bad apple in a company that did a shitty job of like vetting I don't know if there's anything in her background. Nothing came out. But man, what she had going on was one hell of a fucking like OG Capone style like racket going on. And the sad thing to me is people are going to connect DEI person with like criminal, and that's just wrong. And I encourage any company that's listening, separate the two. If like put it out, like DEI is not her. She's not representative. Facebook and what they've been doing. Take out what Facebook's been doing for the last 5 years in DEI off the table. Like separate the two from your brain because they have nothing to do with each other. And it's sad that people will connect the two, and it sucks. It sucks for the movement for sure. Damn it. I need to take a break and maybe talk about strippers. Maybe that'll make me feel better. I don't know. We'll be right back, everybody.
Well, Joel, unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and actually bust in with some breaking news. So we're not going to talk about strippers this week. I'm sorry. iCIMS is following a thorough search to ensure they bring in the right leader to lead iCIMS into the next chapter. They have identified their new CEO, Jason Edelboim, will be the CEO effective January 2nd. He brings nearly 2 decades of experience in data, technology, and enterprise software, and previously held senior leadership positions at Cision, PR Newswire, and Bloomberg. He's a PR guy. Yeah. He's a PR guy. Again. Okay. He most recently served as president and COO at Dataminer, an AI platform company that pioneered technology for the real-time detection of events and business critical information for public data sources to corporate enterprises and government organizations. That's right, kids. January 2nd, iCIMS will have a new CEO. That's fucking awesome. But yes, this literally just came in to my email, and it is hot off the presses. What do you think?
Not the presses. So a few things in there. Data Miner, public company, I believe, that went IPO fairly recently. I don't know if this guy was part of that process, but if iCIMS wants to go public, having someone with that experience obviously makes a lot of sense. And I thought that was one of the reasons why they had the last two CEOs. Certainly took enough time. So I hope they vetted everyone and had long conversations. And
after the last one, they had to take
hopefully
time.
This guy sticks around a while. Hopefully he sticks around a while. Cision, you said, was the company that he's coming from. I don't know anything about Cision. So
he's from Data Miner. So Cision is
Data Miner is his most recent gig.
One of the PR groups, right? So one of the actual PR marketing groups.
Yep. So media stuff, PR, the Marketo automation stuff plays into that. Maybe they're looking to get into more media entities. We'll see. But yeah, I'm sure everyone at iCIMS is just happy to have a captain of the ship again, because they've felt a little rudderless for the past, I don't know, was it almost 6 months, 4 months that they haven't?
I don't know.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. It's been a while. We love iCIMS. We love those cats. So hopefully the ship gets back on track and iCIMS gets back on their trajectory of a public company that we'll love talking about in the near future.
Well,
24, 25 will be interesting.
Hopefully next week you can talk about strippers.
Can I give you a stripper joke though?
Sure. Yes. Why not?
I got a stripper joke. What's the difference between a waitress at a strip club and a stripper? A waitress at a strip club and a stripper. What's the difference?
One's topless and the other one isn't?
About 2 weeks. We out.
Oh, we out.
Thank you for listening to, what's it called? A podcast. The Chad. The Cheese. Brilliant. They talk about recruiting. They talk about technology. But most of all, they talk about nothing. Just a lot of shout-outs of people you don't even know. And yet you're listening. It's incredible. And not one word about cheese. Not one. Cheddar. Blue. Nacho. Pepper jack. Swiss. So many cheeses and not one word. So weird. Anywho, be sure to subscribe today on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That way you won't miss an episode. And while you're at it, visit www.chadcheese.com. Just don't expect to find any recipes for grilled cheese. It's so weird. We out!